Hello, everybody. This is Susan Heaton-Wright and Nick Simon from Superstar Communicator. Do you know what? We're in for a treat today, and he's even played rugby in the United Kingdom. And he's recovered from the post-match drinking, from what I understand. Jeffrey Hayzlett is a primetime television host of C-Suite with Jeffrey Hayzlett and executive perspectives on C-Suite TV, and business podcast host of All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett on C-Suite Radio as well. He's a global business personality, speaker, best-selling author, and chairman and CEO of C-Suite Network, home of the world's most trusted network of C-Suite leaders. We are in for a treat. But before I pass over to Jeff, I want to say that he has some incredible stats for his work. So over to you, Jeff.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I appreciate it, Susan. It's good to have a chance to be on the show with you and Nick and be able to visit with the folks there in the UK and then everyone, because you don't just have to be in the UK to listen anymore or to watch. You know, it's a worldwide medium. I mean, build content. Your content drives community, your community drives commerce. That's what you have to do. You have to build that brand of you, whether you're a major brand or you are the brand itself. You have to do that. So yeah, in my career, I've bought and sold over 250 businesses, about 25 billion in transactions, former Fortune 100 officer, former host or co-host or guest host of a show called the Celebrity Apprentice with Donald Trump, so let's just get that out there for everybody. I was a judge on that show for 3 years, and let's just be clear. Yeah, let's just be clear. He's batshit crazy. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We could see that, every day playing out in the news, and certainly on the show, he had quite the persona. But yeah, and then I became my own television show on Bloomberg Television, and then that became C-Suite TV, and then C-Suite Radio, which is our podcast network. We have about 72 TV shows, 450 podcasts, 22,000 episodes, 50 million downloads. I mean, it just keeps going, and we're growing at about 170%. So this is, this medium that you're leading and that you host, you and Nick are part of, without question, this is the way to get to the right audience. And I'm just glad to be on it today.
Oh, thank you. And we're glad to have you because honestly, you are the absolute expert, not just of Donald Trump, but also, but also on this medium. And if there's anybody who's watching who wants to ask Jeff a question, please remember to put the comment in the comment section. Yeah. So you mentioned about the fact that this is a really good way of building community as part of a brand. And clearly it's mainly with big brands that you work. But what about for smaller businesses, or as you mentioned, personal brands? What tips would you give regarding that?
Well, our network actually is open to everybody, anybody that, whether you're on Main Street or Wall Street, doesn't make a difference, or, High Street or whatever you might call your Main Street, depending on where you're at. But, the key thing is what is really great about something like this is what's a brand? A brand is nothing but a promise delivered. And whether you're, a small business, in Kent and you're a dry cleaner, you have to become known as the doctor of spots. You can't just advertise anymore. They have to be able to find you. They have to have how to get grass stains out of jeans, how to get blood out of a shirt or lipstick, or depending on whatever you're into at any given time. You have to be able to do that. And to do that, you have to build content. So a podcast is a great way to do it. It's fairly inexpensive. It's not really costly. And you can actually turn all of this into a television show. So it can be a TV show as well as being an audio podcast. And of course, now people, when you think about people who are listening, let's just take the average business podcast on C-Suite Radio. We have average 22 to 27 minutes. The average person listens to 5 different shows, 8 episodes a week. You just want to be one of those 8 episodes. You want to have your message heard. And this isn't in a game anymore, Susan, as it used to be in social media about eyeballs and ears, how many friends, how many likes we can have. It's really about hearts and minds. It's about building that community, that group of followers, those people that really adore your brand and want to follow and, want to use your content, want to use your intellectual property, no matter what kind of business you are, no matter what size. And that builds that community. And then from that community, it becomes business. That's really that simple. And a podcast is a great way. I'm sorry, you put the quarter in, you get to go for the full ride with me. I'm that big, I always say about those big brass Americans, I'm that times 10, okay, when it comes to business. But, what I always tell a lot of people who are thinking of doing a podcast, think about the people you want to do business with and invite them on. And of course, interview them. As a result, you're going to end up signing up 10, 20%, depending on how good you are, of those people that you interview. And so you get them as customers. Great way to be able, especially if you're a coach, a trainer, an author, a speaker, a real thought leader, is a great way for you to be able to build your clientele.
Now, it's really interesting that you say about a podcast and you can make it into a TV show. What are your tips for repurposing a podcast?
Well, we do a number of things with the podcast. Let's say my show alone. My show is streaming on Apple, Roku, Amazon Fire. It's on airlines. So I've been on airlines now for almost 10 years, where I'm the business show on a number of airlines. In fact, I get more comments that come in every day of someone who's watching me at 35,000 feet than are listening to me on, say, Amazon, for instance, or what's that? Alexa, because a lot of people listen on Alexa these days. So we have a lot of people that pay attention. So I'm repurposing it that way. You can certainly put it on YouTube, although most business people aren't all going to YouTube. They occasionally go and look for things, but primarily they go to where they're already in, and that's the major engines that are out there. And on C-Suite Radio, we put them out to about 1,800 listening engines around the world, so you can be heard anywhere. Then you want to be able to chop that video up, take some really good sound bites, maybe 10 or 15 different sound bites, and then put them out on social media. Turn the podcast into a blog, and turn the video into a podcast, turn the podcast into video. There's lots of different ways. And of course, I love what you're doing, Susan. You're also streaming it on social media, right? So you're now interactive with your followers. So I have 1 million followers myself, on LinkedIn, Twitter, or whatever you call it today, and on Facebook and everywhere else that you could potentially be. And I stream that as well live, so they can listen to me at All Business right here on C-Suite Radio or C-Suite TV with Jeffrey Hayzlett. So same thing, so you can interact. And I love to have questions come in live. I get to talk about my fans right when we're on air, and it's a great way for interaction. So that's just one or two ways. There's some other things that could come out of it. Maybe it leads you to things that you've learned. So for instance, on my podcast, I always end it with, what did I learn from the interview? And then I can compile all those at the end of the year, and I've got a great little article or great summary of all my podcasts. And then people can go, if you want to learn about this, go to this episode. You want to learn about this, go to this episode. Great way for people to interact.
That's brilliant. And you mentioned about all of these platforms for videos. I mean, I know about YouTube, and I obviously know about Vimeo, but how, as a podcaster or a live streamer, a small business, could you access some of these other platforms?
Well, that's a great question, because right now, for most people who do podcasting or who want to get into more video, you're in what I would call podcast or video purgatory, which means there's, you're up against 23 million other podcasts or TV shows out there. I mean, there are literally that many that are out there, and going to be even more. So how do people find you? Well, what we believe, and I've always believed, it's better to be associated with a lot of people. Like back when I played rugby, it was great that I was a good rugby player, but I was better when I was part of a team or part of a league or part of a union. So that's what you need to do. You need to find and be a part of a tribe, or in this case, a network of others. And so there's that network effect, because Susan, if they listen to my show, they might want to listen to your show too, right? And vice versa. And that's how you start to grow. And it's that association of being with other business podcasts out there, so you're not in purgatory, or with other TV shows so that you can get on those other platforms, because they're not likely to take one, but they'll take all 70 of our shows, right? If we're able to feed those up. And we can do that at scale. It's hard for an individual to do that. So what you do is you pick somebody like a C-Suite Radio, C-Suite TV, or you can try to get on BBC, or you can try to get on, one of the other major networks as well. We just happen to have a little bit easier way to do it because we're looking for great content all the time, as where maybe the BBC or ABC, CBS, CNN might be a little snottier than normal. And so we tend to be a little bit more inclusive and saying, no, listen, there's some great content. Just because you don't like that, or just because you only have this thing or agenda that you want to push, we want to push all agendas. And so we're a little bit more inclusive on that. I just like great content. I don't care whether you're sitting in your basement, with headphones on, doing another interview with another guy with headphones on, and there's only 10 of you listening, but those 10 really like it. And if I had those 10 with this other person that does 10,000, this other person that does 100,000, this other person that does 1 million, now I've got a great network, and I can go out and sell advertising on that, and I can monetize that content for everybody.
That's brilliant.
Great. And you say that companies should act like a media company.
Yep.
What do you mean by that? Are you referring to how they communicate?
Yeah, you have to take content. It's a great question, Nick. You have to take content and get it out there, and you have to be where your customer is going to be. Because all of us, like, let's take social media. You might like Instagram, and Susan might like, I don't know, TikTok a little bit better. And I actually still like Twitter or Spaces. I still love that. I mean, if something happens, I go search on there quick because it's so interactive and so fast that I can see what's happening. When I hear sirens in New York, or I hear there's, a fire truck goes by, or I hear a loud boom, I get right on Twitter because I can get that information faster than I can through a major news entity. Well, what's important for anyone to do is to be able to create great content and then get it out in the form of which you want it. You want it. And that's what we have to do. It used to be that the major news networks, major news outlets and newspapers and magazines and TV, it used to be that they would take that information, and if you had to get on there in order to get it out. And we were forced to go and watch a primetime business show at 9:00. Who does that anymore? No one. And so that's why you're going to have to become a media company and control your own destiny, and not go out and broadcast it out to everybody, but only broadcast it or get it out to the people who care, who want it, and when they want it. And that's what you have to start to learn. And why I might not like this outlet or this outlet, you do. And that's what counts. And so that's what I have to do, is match that content with your own personal preferences, the way you want it, when you want it, how you want it, right? And in the tone that you want it. And then I'll be very successful in that endeavor. And whether you're a big brand, like I used to be the chief marketing officer for Kodak, or you're a small business on, as I said, in Kent, or maybe up in Leeds, where you're just a dry cleaner and you got a little small business, you have to let people know who you are and why they should care, why they should come to you. And so giving that content, broadcasting that out as information, you're going to trust me more. You're going to want to interact with me more. And when you have a problem that you either don't want to solve, or you'd rather just pay somebody else to solve it for you, then you'll call on me. And that's what makes it all happen. And that's rich. That's enrich engagement. That's what a community makes. And then, what I'm the most important about is making some money. That's how we keep score. That's how we keep score. Even if you're Donald Trump, that's how you keep score.
Nick, do you have another question?
Yeah. Why is radical humility necessary for success?
Well, I think that both radical humility and as well as transparency, I think both of those go hand in hand today. Once there was in the US for a while, and I'm sure they ran this in the UK as well, there was a commercial that came on and said, "Our pizza tastes like cardboard." And I thought, who's running an ad that says our pizza tastes like cardboard? Well, it was Domino's. And I said, why would Domino's run an ad and spend money, good money, to tell people that they sucked? And I couldn't figure it out. So I did a TV show. I went up to Detroit, went and met with the board of directors and to the officers of the company. And I said, please, somebody tell me how this happened. Because I got to imagine you're sitting around this big room and all of a sudden you're having this great meeting and everybody's talking about how great you are. And someone raised their hand and knows, no, we suck. In fact, I have this piece of paper right here in front of me. It's a study that says our pizza tastes like cardboard. Our customer says it sucks. We got to do something about it. Let me see if I have this right, Mr. Chairman. You agreed with the chief marketing officer when he did that. And you said, what we're going to do is spend $10 million to retool the pizza, to change it, bring in world-class chefs, upgrade the ingredients. And then we're going to change our name because we actually aren't Domino's Pizza anymore. We're Domino's because we sell more chicken than pizza. All right. And now you're going to go out and advertise and spend $80 million. And you still have your job. Do I have this right? And he goes, yeah, that's exactly how it happened. I said, look, you changed the brand promise of the company. He said, no, I didn't. I said, yes, you did. He goes, no, I didn't. I said, look, dude, it's my show. Yes, you did. Okay. So, that's what it's, because listen, what was the brand promise of Domino's back then? 30 minutes or it's free, because they used to deliver. They delivered to everybody in the States. And so if you didn't get your pizza in 30 minutes, you got it for free. So what happened? Most people, the brand promise was you called Domino's, and what was the first thing you did after you hung up and placed your order? You looked at your watch to see what time it is, hoping they would be late so you would get a free shitty pizza. Basically, that's what the brand promise was, and they changed that. What was the result? The result was it's the biggest increase in stock price and value in history of the American exchange market, period. It went from like 98 cents to well over $100 and some per share. It was the biggest and fastest ride. And why, Nick? Because they were humble. They were transparent. They told the frickin' truth. Who does that in America today? Who does that in the UK? Who does that worldwide? And so what they decided was that brand is nothing but a promise delivered. We have to reframe the brand promise, and we have to tell the truth, and we have to be open and honest and say, this was it. I mean, and they're doing it with their phone. Right now, they're doing a whole commercial that says, order online, order through the app. If you mess it up, it's your fault, not ours, because you picked pepperoni over sausage. You did that with your big fat finger, and you made that case. And they're doing it with the phone, the most personal device in the history of the world. I mean, this phone is more important than your car. 98% of the people sleep within one arm's length of this thing. Think about it. If you lost your phone and your kids, in a shopping center, what would you go looking for first? Your phone. All right. That's the case, right? So they're doing it again. And it's brilliant because they've actually eliminated another $1 out of the cost of delivery. So it's just the margins on that. So the payoff is in being transparent, being humble, being real. And brand, you get that. We all understand that brands make mistakes, businesses make mistakes. We just want you to acknowledge it. We understand that you sometimes delay the planes and you say, oh, it's a mechanical problem when you don't have them all full yet, right? We get that. How about just tell us the truth? That's what we want. That's what customers want.
I just want to jump in there because you've been around for a number of years. You're obviously very, very good at communications. What changes have there been other than people not telling the truth anymore?
Nick, did she just call me old? I think she did.
I didn't know.
But nicely done in a beautiful British way. No, nonetheless. All right. Let me tell you, yes, has it changed? Let me tell you how it's changed mostly. For the most part, brands used to communicate in a way that we vomited up information. We just threw it out there. We broadcast. Well, we went from broadcast to narrowcast to now segments of one, which means if we want to find people based on behavior, we can do that. It's just a matter of us paying attention to our customer base and what they do and how they receive. And so we also went from this thing where we just took information. Now we select and deselect, right? We constantly, think about your inbox. Oh, delete, because you don't want to talk to that person, or ban, block, right? So that means you'll never get another message from anybody again. And we see that all the time. So what you have to do is make sure that the message and the communication is more relevant rather than irrelevant. And so that when you're in conversation, when I start to reach out to you, that like you're saying, hey, what's in it for me? What's the hook? What's the thing? And by the way, you got that first sentence or two to get through it. If you can't get them hooked by then, if it's an email communication, but even if it's a video message, it has to come through as something that's personable or, individual, like a segment of one, rather than a blast message out to 100,000 people. And by the way, and that's difficult in today's world. I write people every day, hundreds of people a day. I email, communicate with them. And a lot of times they'll say, Jeff, is this you or your staff? Dude, it's me. It's me. It's me. I'm sending this message as me. So I always right, this is a personal email. This is a personal message. Or I do videos that way too. And now I've taken to the point where I'm doing like 100 videos in a day to get to people so they know and say, Susan, I just want to talk to you about Nick. I just want to talk to you about this, so that they get that. Now, AI is going to make that even better, right? Because I'm going to be able to feed a script and have an avatar of myself that you can't tell the difference between me and the real me. Whoa, that's scary to see two of this coming at you. But you're going to be able to have that. So it's going to even change more as we get more effective. And that's really what you have to do. You have to break through all the clutter. You have to break through all the filters. You have to break through all the bands of ways to get to you that you don't, all the moats that you put up around you. And that's what's changed so much. Is before we didn't have that. You turn on the radio and you blast it out. You turn on the TV, we blast it out. And it was by eyeballs and ears. And now you really have to tailor make the communication to make it relevant, not irrelevant, to make it selected, not deselected, and into segments of one.
Yeah. Furthering on from that, mentioning AI, and how everybody has a device that they can create content now. You have mobile phones that can film or take photos. And in fact, apps today like TikTok have a kind of editing tool that means you can actually edit your own content. How would you say content creation will change over the years as content creation itself is more accessible to everyone?
We see it already. It's difficult. I mean, that's one of the values of the C-suite network, because we call ourselves a trusted network. Why? Because I like to do business with people like me, but I got to make sure I find people like me. Well, why am I doing that? Am I being snobbish or whatever? No, but I trust the people that are around me, right? When I'm in the C-suite of a multi-billion-dollar company, I like to do business with other multi-billion-dollar companies because they speak my same language. It's like when someone comes to me and says, Jeff, I can save you hundreds of dollars. Like, dude, don't even talk to me. You just cost me $100. Then they write back, and I can save you thousands of dollars. Dude, don't write me. You just cost me thousands. I can save you tens. Listen, if you can't save me millions of dollars, don't write me. I have to write back. So so we like trusted networks now. But what do I mean more about that? If I go on LinkedIn today, it's difficult for me to now, because of the great way you can create content, right? Or a website or a podcast or a video. I can't tell if you have the chops to back it up, right? So the content creation is going to get better and better and better. So it's going to be very important for all of us to have those links together in communities and tribes, so that we can be seen as a trusted, like, this is a friend of mine. This person can do it. Because I can tell you there's a lot of charlatans out there that are creating content today that I call false prophets. If you're a coach, a trainer, an author, a speaker, you know what I'm talking about. I see these people as saying, hey, let me teach you the secrets behind door number one. And they get you behind door number one just to tell you it's really behind door number two, door number three, and door number four, right? So they're false prophets like the Bible, but also false prophets like the bottom line. I mean, today you have people creating content that are 18-year-old life coaches, 18-year-old life coaches. And let me be clear, at 18, you're not a life coach, you're a teen coach, okay? And so it's important for us to be able to separate this great content that's being created and make sure that it's not only just valuable, but it's also credible, and it's got the chops to back it up. And that's going to be the real hard thing, I think, Nick, with all the different tools that are created. Because the money I used to spend, and by the way, I've got closet fulls of equipment, right? As I bought all this, and I'm sure you have, and microphones and everything else that we bought, and studios studios that I built, and now I can throw up a green screen and be in a studio in a matter of minutes, right? So there's lots that if you have proper lighting. So anyway, that's where it goes.
Now, before we go, because I'm aware that you're a very, very busy man, I could listen to you all day, by the way. So
Oh, thank you.
I'm elbowing you out. I have to say that straight away. But what would your 3 top tips be to share with the audience?
Oh, wow. So first of all, I would say that always ask yourself, what problem are you solving? We come up with these great ideas. We think about this, and whether you're starting a meeting, or you're starting a business, what problem are we going to get to today? What is it? What's our real purpose? And so that drives me. Second of all, I want to get down to what is our focus, right? So in terms of keeping focused on delivering that particular promise, so we don't go off and chase those squirrel moments, like squirrel over here or jump over here. And then last but not least, I want to know what my mutual conditions of satisfaction are. That is, what is it I'm doing for the business that I want to get out of it by doing what we're doing? And if I can't have that, I don't want to be in it. So those would be my key 3 tips for anyone that's doing a business. By the way, that applies for a marriage, that applies for a family, that applies for a lot of different things, in terms of having, that what problem are we here for? Why do we love each other? What do we want to do? What focus do we want to keep on that? So we make sure that that's at the forefront. And then what do I get out of it? And then what do you get out of it?
Brilliant. Have you got any questions to ask, Nick? Because I know you are working on the strategy for the podcast.
Yeah. You were one of the first C-level executives to use social media as an avenue to engage with audiences. Can you tell us about that?
Thank you, Nick.
How do you know that would be crucial in years to come? And what steps did you take to build a community?
I didn't. I thought it was kind of stupid stuff. Like, what do you mean people are going to take pictures of their food and post it up and all this stuff? But I had great staff, and the staff said, Jeff, this is going to be very important. So here, let us sign you up for your Twitter account. And I was one of the first 1,000 people on Twitter, for instance, and Facebook and so forth. And I didn't know. And so what did I do? I started writing it because my wife would say, where are you at today? I said, well, I'm in India. She goes, I didn't know that. And so I started saying, well, follow me on Twitter, and then I can tell you what I'm doing. And that's how I started my Twitter accounts, was writing for my family. And I still write like that today. I still write for my family, my community, the way it is. I wasn't sure how important it was going to be until I started getting lots of feedback, Nick, because we used to do things in a traditional way of being able to do our planning for creating a new camera, creating a new whatever widget that we might be selling. And it would go through a year or 2 year or sometimes 5-year process. But I started getting immediate feedback, and I learned the value of that, and very quickly, for not only just the research and development of our new product, but the marketplace and how they use it, the way they bought it, and so forth. And then, of course, customer service without question. So that became very important. I named the very first chief blogger ever by any corporation. So knew that was important for us to engage with our audience. I named the very first chief listening officer ever in social media. And so listening I just listened really well to my team. They know what they're doing. They know how they're doing it. And, my job isn't to be the smartest person in the room. My job is to be the most strategic person in the room. And that's the job of a good C-suite executive. And so I just listened really well.
Brilliant. I'm so grateful for you being on this podcast and sharing so much wisdom, expertise, and knowledge. Before we go, is there anything you would like to share with the audience, how they can get in contact with you? Do you have any books that you would like to recommend? And I will make sure that they will know about these.
Well, thank you so much. Of course, I've got 4 bestsellers that I have out there: The Mirror Test, Running the Gauntlet, Think Big, Act Bigger, and my last book, which is The Hero Factor, in terms of how great leaders transform organizations and great winning cultures. It's about putting people above profit. That's the most important thing to do. You can reach me at jeff@csuitenetwork.com. That's Jeff at c-suite, S-U-I-T-E network.com, or find me on social media. If there's anything I can do, email me. That's going to be me that writes right back, because I always do that. I'm just honored that people reach out to me. So reach out to me at any given time, and I'll be glad to help.
Thank you so much. Nick, do you want to add anything before I wrap up? He's frozen.
He's frozen. We've frozen him in time. That's what we've done.
So before we get into massive giggles, which isn't very good for a podcast, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and for sharing so much with us. Thank you again, and we look forward to interacting with you, and definitely I will be sending you a CV, an email to thank you personally.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Thanks.